Hello and welcome to our first pastry lesson. So today we're going to be doing a level 1 lesson and we're doing treacle tart. So we'll start by just making the sweet paste. So we're going to be using the method in a blender, which is very quick and easy. So add your flour, your butter, your salt and your sugar, and then process until it looks like breadcrumbs. Okay, so here you can see nice fine breadcrumb texture, nice and crumbly. So next up we're just going to add our egg and gently incorporate just until mixed together. So you can see here it does come together, but when I gently press it, it does fall apart rather easily. So to that we're going to add a teaspoon of water. And then again, gently combine. You don't want to overdo it here. If you overwork your pastry, it will shrink when you cook it. So just until combined again. And now you can see we've got a much firmer texture. So now empty it onto your work surface, bring it all together, and then you're just going to shape it into a flat disc ready to refrigerate for 1 hour. So here I'm just going to show you how to line your tin. We're going to make something called a cartouche, which is just a circle of baking paper used in many different things. So for this we're going to put it underneath our crust to stop it from sticking to the tin, but you can also use it for other things like covering sauces and poaching fish. So once you've got your baking paper folded up into this triangle, you're going to measure from the center to the outside, and then you're going to tear off the excess baking paper, and when you unfold it you should find that you have a nice circle. Now you can see mine is slightly too big here, but not a problem. Just refold it up, tear a little off again, and then unfold it, and it should now fit. So our sweet pastry's had an hour in the fridge now and it's firmed up nicely, so we just want to lightly flour it, and you can see that I'm going to roll it out on a bit of baking paper here. This isn't absolutely necessary, but it will help you with turning it. So you want to roll this gently, not putting too much pressure down each roll because you will crack it. And we're going to aim to roll this out to about a thickness of 2mm or a pound coin. And to make sure it's an even thickness all the way through, every couple of rolls you want to turn it 90 degrees. If your pastry does stick to the baking paper or to the rolling pin, you can keep lightly reflouring it, but make sure it is light, otherwise you'll dry out your pastry and you'll have cracking once again. So this looks about the right size. I'm just going to measure to make sure I've got enough excess pastry to come up the sides of the tin on each side. Okay, once you're happy that your pastry is going to fill your tin, you want to lightly flour it one more time, and then you want to lightly butter your tin. This is to stop it from sticking, but also to help the baking paper stick to it. And now you're going to roll your pastry up onto your rolling pin using the baking paper to help roll it without tearing it. And now you're going to gently drape it into your tin, unrolling slowly, making sure the pastry goes into the tin and isn't sitting on top of the tin because it will tear. And now you want to lift off the excess and push it gently down into the tin to make sure it covers all of the corners. And then finally, just to make sure it is pressed right into the tin, take a little bit of your excess, roll it into a ball, then dust it in flour and press all the way around the edge, fairly firmly but not so much you're squashing the pastry, to get it right into them edges. And then before cooking, you're going to want to prick the entire bottom of this with a fork. This is going to stop the bottom from rising up and any air build up. And then you're going to put in some baking paper, some baking beans, and place in the oven on 180 degrees or 375 degrees Fahrenheit for about 15 minutes. And here's what it should look like after 15 minutes. You see the pastry looks very dry on the bottom and not wet at all. If it is still wet, just put it back in without the baking beans for a further 5 to 10 minutes. And then with a sharp knife, you're going to trim off the excess overhang of the pastry to leave you with a perfect tart case. Here I'm using something called a pastry knife, but you could also just use a sharp chef's knife. Okay, now that's done, let's move on to the filling. So this is a fairly simple process, as we're just going to whisk everything together, starting with our black treacle. And then we'll add all of our eggs. And our ground ginger, vanilla extract, lemon juice, lemon zest, our golden syrup, which I have previously warmed to make it runnier, and lastly our breadcrumbs. Now I'm using sourdough breadcrumbs because I had some sourdough bits left over, but any breadcrumbs will do. And now just beat all that together really well, and then you're going to leave it to sit for about 20 minutes for the bread to absorb some of the liquid. Now pour your mixture into your prepared case, and remember to leave about ½ centimetre from the top, as this will rise slightly. And now place this in your oven for about 30 minutes at 150 degrees centigrade or 300 degrees Fahrenheit. And when it's cooked, you want to leave it for about 30 minutes before you cut it. Alright, let's plate this.